You've got to remember, fandom is a massive economy. The way it drives, you know, it's work for people and it's pleasure for people as well. And it's storytelling, which is a wonderful piece of self-expression, you know, and good will only come of letting people be creative and able to express their creativity. You know, whether that's in creation of work or in the enjoyment of it. They're both very important, they're the same thing, they're just different sides of it. The script arrived and it was like the Beatles' music, it was full of a kind of joyfulness really, but there's a note of melancholy in it somewhere. And like their songs, even their very joyful songs, have a sense of the melancholy in them as well. And I loved it, you know, and I thought that's exactly, I need a summer of doing that, you know. If we can find a guy who can carry the songs, then we should do this, you know, because it's a wonderful opportunity to do a love letter to the Beatles on the one hand, and we're all, in a way, obligated. You know, there's those who like them more than others, but we're all obligated to them, really. They changed the world, really, and set the course for pop culture. And so it's a love letter to their music and a really lovely love story between Lily, James, who plays his kind of school friend and manager and his real destination in life, and Jack Malik, played by Himesh Patel. And it's also great to do a story that's so focused on love, really, because one of your guys said it, Tennessee Williams said, we live in a burning building and the most important thing to save is love. It's a fun premise, obviously, for a character and his story, really. If you want to explore the premise, it's like 5 films, because actually unpicking the impact that the Beatles have had would be extraordinary. You know, you would kind of, I think it would be impossible even over 5 films. I don't think you could actually portray it, because they're so woven into everything that's happened to us. There's a bit in the film, there's a picture of 4 women screaming at the end of the film, which is a still from a period that was called Beatlemania. And these girls were kind of condemned, really, by the establishment as being hysterics and what was happening to our youth. You know, the usual things that the establishment says about any pop cultural movement. But what happened is that it was so intense, that experience for those girls, that and for so many fans, that they forced the Beatles into a kind of spotlight, which then the Beatles used to start writing. Because unlike a passing pop trend, they became writers and they wrote those albums, and those albums changed the world because they set the course for true pop culture, really. Including, in a way, the kind of an explosion of sci-fi, because it was all about pleasure and youth, and it was about young people enjoying themselves, and, you know, comics slowly came centre stage. But you've got to remember that what was around at the time was the establishment is basically saying, you do what you're told, you join the army if we need you, you've got to work the work that we'll dictate to you, like that. And people just said, no, we're not going to do that anymore. You know, we're going to do what we want to do. We're not going to do exactly what our parents did and step into their shoes and go on like that. And the establishment naturally assumed it was a passing fad to be despised and horrified by. But it wasn't a passing fad. This was the world shifting on its axis, really. And not only that, they were creating an economy with this pop culture, which meant that it's self-sustaining. Not just self-sustaining, but the source of growth. And if you think about the modern world, what its dependency, and it's a growing dependency now, and especially as we will all end up polishing robots, because that's the only work there'll be left to do, pop culture is just going to keep going, really. And so I don't think there's any end in sight for it. And it's a wonderful thing. You can sneer at it, but it's actually a wonderful thing. It's kept us at peace. And the Beatles, for instance, so when America went to war in Vietnam, the Beatles sent their medals back to Buckingham Palace in protest at the British government's support. So they lived by their principles as well. And that's an amazing step for young men to do at the time. You know, it took a lot of boldness to challenge. You can imagine the argument, there'll be a riot if you don't play, and people are used to this and they prefer you to play, you know, all those kind of arguments would have been used. They went, no, this is a principle, this is a new way of living. We do keep seeing the world that way, and it's grown, you know, so it's a wondrous thing, and includes, yeah, fandom.